Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. I am Armando Morales. I will be walking you through SizeUp today, the analytical software that'll help you and your small business be able to do your own analytics. Andrea, thank you for joining me today. Andrea, if you want to come off mute and maybe say a few words. I know that you have a few announcements for all of our attendees here. I know it's a very, very busy week at the Division of Small Business. So, uh, Andrea, thank you for joining and go ahead and take it away.
Thanks so much, Armando. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Wojcik with the Delaware Division of Small Business. I am the Communications Director for the agency. And as most of you know, it is National Small Business Week and May is National Small Business Month. So I just want to remind people that we have a landing page on our website at de.gov/smallbizmonth, and I'll drop that into the chat for you so you don't have to remember it. And on that webpage, we have several resources for small business owners, including flyers you can download and print out, social media copy and posts that you can use, newsletter content, all that sort of stuff. And of course, for today, I want to make sure that you know if you go to business.delaware.gov, if you haven't already, and if that's already not how you know about this, you can access SizeUp Delaware, our free business analytics tool. And Armando has been a great partner with us, and he does such an amazing job at explaining how exactly to use this tool and answering people's questions. So with that, Armando, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Andrea. And I really appreciate that. And it's wonderful to know there's so many resources to help small businesses in Delaware. And I am happy to run you guys through one of those resources. If you want to follow along in this demo, you can either use this link right here, or you can scan this code and if after this demo, you have your own specific questions and a representative such as myself or my colleagues will be there to answer and run you through any of your specific scenarios. As a company that's very interested in small businesses and entrepreneurs, we like to keep track of the trends. So what you have here is the business formations that are happening in the US. And as you can look over here, or as you can see right here, an interesting area, right here is the start of the pandemic. We thought this dip was going to be the trend and the norm, but it fantastically shot up in the opposite direction. And then eventually it did come down. However, even when it did come down, its lowest lows were still higher than any of the previous highs. And that is amazing for small businesses and being able to provide resources for them. But of course, the US is a big country, so we wanted to look a little bit closer. So if we look a little bit granularly at the Northeast, we can see that it follows the same trend. And of course, if we go even more specific, we look at the state of Delaware, and it is following that same trend as well. So it's great. There are a lot more business starts in the US and especially in Delaware. However, we do want to be wary, even though there's still more business formations, there still exists the business failure rate. And in a 5-year span, that's typically about 50% of small businesses, which is unfortunate. Now, while that may sound daunting, if we take a look and we break down the numbers of why those businesses are failing, we can see that about 37.5 are dying due to what we call a natural death. So things like a shift in the market, if you were selling fax machines and everybody's gone to emails, if you were selling DVDs and everybody's moved on to streaming, that's kind of how the market has shifted. And businesses die a natural death due to causes like that. Now, not much we can do for those, but if we take a look at the other piece of the pie over here, 62.5% of businesses are failing due to a lack of preparation. Now, this is where SizeUp really shines because we provide the objective lens of data so you can optimize your decision making and get yourself better prepared to handle certain situations. So, SizeUp, why an online business intelligence tool? We know that small businesses don't have access to the same kinds of resources that maybe the big box stores like, the Amazons of the world, the Walmarts of the world, to be able to do these $100,000 analytics. So what we do is we collate hundreds of different data sources, and then we put it in a easy to use tool known as SizeUp Delaware so that you can do your own analytics and be able to optimize your decision making through this analyses. Now, this data is available whenever you are. We know that you're hard at work on your businesses pretty much 24/7. So whenever you get a breather here and there, you have to eat lunch sometime, you can access this. It is available online 24/7. We've also made it simple to use. So we know that 95% of small businesses don't know what their NAICS or SIC codes are. So we speak the same language as you do. If you are a restaurant and you want to look at other restaurants, you simply start to type in restaurants and you can start to compare restaurants as opposed to NAICS code 700,554, for example. Now, also, we know that everybody's a different level of tech savviness. So we've created a report generator so that you can also keep that in your files, use that, have print a physical copy so you can evaluate all the information that you've just done or the analytics that you just produced, um, and be able to potentially put that in your business plan and use it for all sorts of things. So a little bit about searching in the tool, as I stated before, different ways if you're looking at restaurants. So like this is a retail example. If we're looking at retail, if we want to look broad, we can look as broad as restaurants. If we're an Italian restaurant, we want to look at more specifically just at Italian restaurants, we can type that in. Or even more specifically, sometimes we can get even as granular as looking at pizza. One more quick example, if we're looking at transportation, we can look as broad as automotive. We can look a little bit more specifically at vehicle maintenance, or even more specific at motor repair. Now, a little bit about the scale of the data. Now, we provide the data at the scale, the smallest scale that it is available at. So when it is available, we have neighborhood or block level data. And then we provide every other scale or every scale after that so you can make that comparison. Now, a little bit about the modules or the specific analyses that are included in the tool. You have the My Business ranking or benchmarking. So you'll be able to look at various types of benchmarks. So the average annual revenue of businesses in a particular industry, look at the different types of salaries or the amount of employees that are within a given industry, and things of that nature. The competition analysis. So this is kind of like your business's ecosystem. Who are your competitors? Are they big box stores? Are they mom and pop shops? Are there clusters of them? Are they spread out? Also, prospecting potential new customers. Everybody needs customers, of course, to run their business. And last but not least, suppliers. Everybody needs to get their supplies from somewhere. So you're able to look at that through these competition analyses. And then the advertising module, where you're able to look at a series of searches and filters, sorts and filters, excuse me, so that you can optimize where you target your advertising and marketing dollars so you can have a higher return on your investment. And then last but not least, you have the access to the demographics, where you'll be able to run 3 different report types and be able to slice the geography in whichever way is most beneficial for you. You'll be able to look at demographics, labor force, and consumer expenditures. So I hope that was a helpful overview going into this demo here. So there's a couple of ways that we can go about going to the tool. Like in the PowerPoint, you can go to sizeup.info/Delaware, or if you're going directly to, you can go directly to the business.delaware.gov and you can navigate to the tool itself. And right here, it's right under the very first header. under services, and you can see SizeUp Delaware Business Analytics Tool. So even if you forget the name SizeUp, you should be able to remember that it is a business analytics tool. So we'll go ahead and click on that. It'll take us to the tool itself. And right there, you don't need to download any software. You can do the analysis right there in your browser. And then if you scroll down as well, you get more helpful information. You also have buttons that will take you to helpful videos. And then also right here, if you lose the link to those office hours where you want to get more help with myself or one of my colleagues to help you through your analyses, you can click this button here as well. And then scrolling down, we also have some FAQs that can potentially help you answer your questions right here in the browser. All right. So as I said before, we made it simple and easy to use. All you have to know is what industry you're looking at and also what city you're looking to operate in. So here, let's go ahead and start off with something. I personally need a haircut. So let me go ahead and type in beauty salons, or I could have typed in barbershops, but we'll go ahead and go with this one for now. And let's go ahead and go to Middletown. And it's really that simple. Then we'll click next and we'll be able to do our analyses. Now, before I move on to that, I do want to point out that this tool is also in Spanish as well. It is not a Google Translate. We got this professionally translated, so it's understood in the context that it was meant to. All right. Now, back to doing the analysis. So we'll go ahead and click next. Now, here are the 4 analyses that I described earlier. We're going to run through all of these, but the first one we're going to do, and each one of these has a little bit of information on the bottom so you can know what analyses that you're going into, and you can target which ones are most relevant for you. So right here, the measure of your business performance, you're being able to benchmark or compare your business ranking to your industry competitors. And you'll be able to do this with a number of different benchmarks. As we can see here, we've got things like revenue, year started, salary, employees, cost effectiveness, and much more as we scroll to the bottom. So as a beauty salon in Middletown, Andrea, I'm going to go ahead and put you on the spot. So if you can come off mute for a second, I'm going to ask you what you think the average annual revenue of a beauty salon in Middletown is.
Let's see. Let's go with $150,000.
150,000.
And
Awesome.
by the way,
So,
that's totally a guess. I am just pulling that out of thin air.
and I completely did that on purpose. I put you on the spot because that's where a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs are when they first start. They have a great idea, or a family member or friends have encouraged them to start a coffee shop, start a bakery, start something, and they're like, you know what? Yeah, but they're not completely sure what these numbers are. They don't know what the average annual revenue is of someone in this particular industry, how many employees they should hire, how much they should be paid, et cetera, et cetera. So SizeUp is providing that objective lens of data so you can better prepare yourself to know these types of benchmarks. So let's go ahead and do 150,000. And it looks like now that we've clicked that and it's done its analyses, you can see right here in the city it's closer to 260. So if you were setting your sights in Wilmington at 150, it looks like you might want to set your sights a little bit higher. And in fact, now we see this at the different scales, right? On the left, city, county, metro, state, and at the national level. However, we also have even more of the story here on this heat map. So we can see this by zip code as well. There are areas where they're making slightly more than the average, and then areas where they're making also slightly less in the lighter colors as well. And with all of our heat maps, with all of our maps, you can interact with them. You can move the map around, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, and you can get the different scales. So we're at zip codes right now. If we go further, we can also get this by county. And then if we go even further, we can also get this by neighboring states. Now, Maybe for beauty salons, it might not be relevant to compare state to state. However, if we're doing something like maybe hotel or something that an industry that has that where they're competing against neighboring states, then this might be relevant to you. All right, moving on to the next benchmark, we've got year started. So let's go ahead and put 2012. This will show you the amount of businesses in the industry we've selected that have opened in a given year. So right now, let's go ahead and click off the US because that is, it was flooding the map or flooding the chart, excuse me. And if we go ahead and hover over each of these, we can see exactly how many businesses opened up in a given year, in this case, in the beauty salon industry. And generally, if the trend is going up, as we see here, then it's showing positive growth. That's typically a good indicator. Now, if we typed in something like DVD rentals, we might see this trend go in the opposite direction. So it might be concern for pause and a little bit further evaluation in that case. All right. So salary. This is a very big one because salary is some of the highest overhead costs of businesses. So if you are paying, so you want to make sure that you're paying justly, right? So let's go ahead and as a beauty salon, let's go ahead and put in about 20,000. And it looks like I would be lowballing my employees on average. So I can see here that maybe if I put out an ad for 20,000, I might not be getting any responses, and that might be because the standard is actually higher. So here we can go ahead and adjust that and adjust our strategic plan accordingly. Now moving on to employees. Again, salary is the highest overhead cost, but also getting the number of full-time equivalent employees correct is huge because if you have too many employees and not enough clientele, then you're paying more overhead cost than you need to. If you hire too few employees, well, you might not be able to service your customer base. So let's go ahead and put maybe about 4 in there. I hit it right on the nose. And as you can see, it's pretty consistent through all the different scales. And if we look at the heat map, it varies slightly by zip code, but it's typically around the 3 to 5 employee range. Now, please keep in mind, this is full-time equivalent. So if you've got a few half-time or a few part-time, those will make up this full-time equivalent number here. All right. And cost effectiveness. Now, this one we've gotten based on the inputs of the previous benchmarks. So it's a combination of the average annual revenue, the amount of employees we have, multiplied by the how much we're paying them. So as we saw here, we are above average. That's probably because while we're making less total revenue, we have the same amount of employees, but we're paying them much, much less in this particular scenario. So if those numbers were to be adjusted, then this number, you would see it change. So if we're making closer to 200,000, then it would go well above average. Or if we're starting to pay our employees closer to the norm in the industry, then we might see this go down to average. All right, moving on, revenue per capita. You're able to see the data sliced in multiple different ways in this case. You're able to see the quality of the dollars spent in the industry by zip code here. And then also in this bottom map here, you're able to see the total revenue by zip code as opposed to the average annual revenue that we saw in the very first benchmark. And then last but not least, we've got the last 3 benchmarks, local retention, healthcare costs, and workers' comp. So we can see about what our turnover rate or how many workers we typically retain in a given industry. So it can be an indicator on how likely we are to keep our employees. Now, if we fall below that threshold, we can look and say, oh, maybe I need to improve my practices. Or if we are retaining even more than what's shown as the industry standard, we can pat ourselves on the back and say, oh, we're doing a great job in being able to retain our working staff. And then healthcare costs and workers' comp, these have typically been opaque to small businesses in the past, but you're able to see it here through SizeUp. Now that we've gone through all of these benchmarks, we can click this summary view button here, and we can get what we like to call a health dashboard. So you can see everything in a collapsed view of the inputs that we just entered. And you can see kind of the scale on where they fall on. And now that we've done all that, we can go ahead and click this PDF button here. That will generate a nice little report. Well, not so little, but there's a lot of powerful analytics here of all of the inputs that we just entered and all of its associated information so that you can go ahead and save that now or save that for later so that you can compare it in the future, because these numbers do change depending on where we are in the tool. Like most of these numbers will be updated every quarter, so you can come back and do the analysis again. So as we can see here, we've got all of the associated information. You can put it as part of your business plan. You can maybe use it potentially as take it as part of your bank loan, showing that you know the industry, you know the numbers here. If there's an incentive program, you might be able to use that in your application as well, showing you did the work, you did the analysis, you did the research. All right. That was the My Business module. I do want to show you that if you ever get lost or forget how to use one of these analyses, you are able to come over here to this I button, this info bubble, and it will drop down a 1 minute or less video that will walk you through how to use this analysis and what this analysis will show you. All right. Moving on to the next through the next analyses, the competition analyses. So here we're able to look at our businesses, or the ecosystem. So just to change this up a little bit, let me go ahead and change this to seafood restaurants. So not just restaurants, but looking a bit more specific. And then let's go ahead and change this maybe to Wilmington. All right. So now we see that the map itself has populated with our competition. Now, by default, your competition, if you are a seafood restaurant, will show other seafood restaurants as well. Now, if you want to add on other industries, let's say you think you're also competing with, in addition to seafood restaurants, maybe Cajun restaurants, you can start to add those in as well. And it will start to be additive here. So again, as I mentioned in our previous analyses, all of our maps are interactive. So you're able to interact with the map, move it around. You're able to zoom in, zoom out. You're also able to click on each one of these pins, and that will bring up an info card about them. And you can do that on the map itself, or you can do it on the search bar over here. And that will bring an info card. You can click on follow their online presence. You can go to their website, or you can go to maybe the Facebook and social media, and you can essentially scout your competition. You know, what are their offerings? What are their price points? What kind of services are they providing, so that you can see and compare what you're doing versus your competition. Now, the next tab, which is one of, or the second of three tabs in this one, is your customers tab. We want to be able to prospect potential customers, of course. So as a seafood restaurant, of course, everybody needs to eat. Everybody loves, I know most people love seafood that I know. So we can pretty much type in any business industry that we want here. Now, if we're looking to maybe do into catering or something like that, we can start to type in those types of businesses that we want to collaborate with or target. Maybe for some reason, if you know that there's a lot of lawyers in town that might want to be doing little events or gifts for their clients, you might want to type in those here. But for now, we typed in caterers. If you are in a touristy area, maybe you want to do something like a tourist information, attractions, do tourist information. So then the map will populate here, and then you'll be able to um, uh, research information or build a prospective customers list here. All right. Now that we've kind of located where our potential customers are, we can also see where our customers are already spending their hard-earned dollars. So we click on this button here, consumer spending, and it brings down a down menu of many different categories. Now that might be a lot to go through, so you can also use the search button here, and let's go ahead and start to type in food. We see the categories that might make more sense for us. So food at home, maybe food away from home makes more sense if we're looking at restaurants. So we click on that, and then we can break it down even further, maybe lunch, dinner, food on out-of-town trips. So again, targeting that kind of touristy area. Ooh, catered affairs. See what people are spending on catered food. But maybe we are a dinner type of a seafood restaurant. So we click on that, and we have a heat map that shows us by block group of what the average household is currently spending on dinner. So we can see that, and we can see by the legend here about approximately how much each of these blocks are spending. So that'll give me an idea of where it's the hard-earned dollars are already being spent by average household. All right, now let me go ahead and take that off so the map's not so cluttered, and then we'll go through our final tab, which is the suppliers, because of course everybody has to get their supplies from somewhere. So I'm gonna go ahead and start to type in restaurants, and we see restaurant equipment supplies wholesale. That might make sense. Services and repair. Of course, we're gonna um, potentially have to repair certain equipment from time to time. So let's go ahead. We've got supplies and wholesale. We can add on to this by continuing to add on different industries as well. And then, of course, there's also the seafood itself. So we can look at fish and seafood markets, fish and seafood wholesale, some general ones, and then we can start to build up that, or we can discover potential new suppliers. And just like the previous tabs, we can click here, we can explore our options, see what their price points are, see what their offerings are, and then maybe build up our suppliers list there. All right, so that was the competition module, being able to evaluate your business's ecosystem. You know, who are your competitors? Are they mom pop shops? Are they big box stores? Are there clusters of them? Being able to discover new customers and then prospect potential new suppliers. The next analysis, the advertising. So here, let's go ahead and change this up. Let's go ahead and do maybe dentist, and let's go ahead and change this up to New York. So not everybody has the multi-million-dollar budget where they can go ahead and advertise in everywhere. Some things are going to be a little bit more local. So depending on where you want to so with the analyses here, you're able to do a series of different sorts and filters so that you can determine where the best area is to advertise. So as you noticed, I put in dentist because let's say in this situation, I have a product. Let's go with something like a toothbrush. Maybe I had an idea for a revolutionary toothbrush, and I know that people that are looking for toothbrushes are probably going to the dentist. So I'm going to advertise in the dentist industry. So, and maybe it is a higher end one. So if we look at this drop down here, you can look at 6 different sorts. Total annual revenue, revenue per capita, underserved markets, average revenue, total employees, and household income. So depending on what your scenario is, you might choose one of these. Let's say if I were looking at breaking into the market and looking at at untapped markets, I might look at underserved markets because here you would be looking at residents that are spending less revenue per capita, which might indicate that, there's a below average spending on this particular industry. So that might be room to come in and take advantage of that. Um, Now, we've clicked on underserved markets. We have an interactive map, just like the previous analyses. We can go ahead and click on each one of those and see information about that zip code. Now, we've got about 11 zip codes here, and that might be too many to choose from. So we can click on this filters button here, and we can adjust our filters. So we can adjust the search distance all the way to nationwide. Again, going back to that example, you would want that if you're advertising further out, if you're maybe a hotel or motel, or maybe dealing in niche memorabilia like comic book collectibles or things like that. But we're going to go ahead and stay a little bit more local. So we're going to go ahead and keep it at about 9-10 miles. And then we can adjust by either demographic characteristics or industry performance. Now here, we can adjust what the household income we're looking at. So maybe we're looking at household income of at least 100,000 because maybe my toothbrushes that I'm selling are maybe a little bit higher end. So now we see the zip codes. It goes down to 2 results that fit in. That was a very quick filtering process. We go back to our results here, and we can see which ones popped up. And then we can get more information about these particular zip codes by clicking on them and evaluating a little bit further. If we only had budget for one, we might look at the other stats here. So while there is less revenue per capita on the 19350 zip code, we might look at this zip code right here, the 19707, and see that there's close to almost 8,000 more residents. And that might be more bang for our buck in our mind, reach a higher amount of population, and be able to get started that way on our outreach. Or if we had enough budget for 2, we could target both of these. Now, we just showed you where the best places to advertise were based on sorts and filters. However, we don't tell you how to advertise. So that's really up to you and your business model. You can do traditional marketing, flyers, billboards, bus stops, door to door, etc. Or you can do the digital approach and you can do targeted ads on Facebook, Instagram, paid ads, however you think is the best approach for you in your community. All right. So that was the advertising module, being able to optimize your target advertising and marketing dollars so that you get a better return on your investment. So moving on to the demographics. So this is the final analyses in the SizeUp tool, but by no means the least. So you can slice the geography in 3 different ways, and you can look at 3 different report types. So here we can look at demographics, the consumer expenditures, or labor force. Depending on your analyses, whatever question you're hoping to get answered, you'll want to click one of these particular report types. So if you're looking to see where maybe your customer base lives, then you'll want to go look at the demographic overview. If you want to see where people are already spending their money on particular categories, you'll click on the consumer expenditures. Now, if you're looking to see where particular industries currently are located, where the type of workforce with specific skills are, you'll want to click on the labor force. So for now, let's go ahead and click on this demographics overview. And then the first way that you can look at specific geographies is right here in For a Place. And we can look at city, county, or metro. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and go with the city. And let's go ahead and I guess we can go to, we haven't gone to Dover. So let's go ahead and go to Dover. We'll click create. And then it will create that the city boundaries there. And you'll be able on the left to see a plethora of information Um, so population, sex, age distribution, race distribution, household income distribution, labor force status, number of housing, education attainment. So a lot of things that you can look at for as far as demographics are concerned. So let's say we're doing kids clothing. Maybe we want to look at this demographic right here. Oh, that's education attainment, excuse me. So we're looking at age distribution. So we can look at over here, the 0 to 4 year olds if we're making baby to toddler clothes, 5 to 9 year olds if we're making, you know, not toddlers, but what is it, adolescents, and then 10 to 19 year olds where you've got, your teenagers, high school students, things like that. Now, if we're looking to open up a coffee shop and your target demographic is 30 to 39 year olds because they're the biggest consumers of coffee in the US, we can go ahead and click on 30 to 39 year olds. And right now on the left, we can see that there's a total of about 4,500 or 11.45% of the population within the city boundaries. Now, if we toggle like I just did here, you'll get a heat map by block group, and you'll be able to see where there are more or there's higher concentrations of 30 to 39 year old, and you can see about how much in the legend there. And just like all of our maps, they're all completely interactive, and you can zoom out and you can see this by zip code and then eventually county and state as well. All right, so that was one of the ways you can slice up your geography. Now, if we go within a boundary, we can create our own boundary here. Maybe we want to include up here, Smyrna. We also want to include Dover and maybe go all the way down and include some of these towns down here and the coast as well. And then we can double click to close this. And then we'll select our report type. So maybe we're interested in the consumer expenditures over here. We can create that. And then it will give you all of the information on consumer expenditures that fall within the boundary that you just created. And we've got a lot of information, things like apparel, education, entertainment, what people are spending their money on. You can see this by average or by total. Excuse me. Food and beverage, healthcare, household furnishing, equipment, shelter, household operations, miscellaneous expense, personal care, reading, tobacco, transportation, utilities, gifts, personal insurance, and contributions. And then just like before, we can look specifically at each of these categories and look at a heat map. So let's see, maybe we want to see something like furniture if we're planning on opening up a furniture shop and see where people are already spending their money on. And then we can zoom in and interact with this map and see where the concentration of as far as the consumer expenditures go. All right. Now, last but not least, we can search around an address, putting your business or your location at the center of the analyses. Let's see, looking for an address, maybe usually at the bottom, we can do 820 North French Street in Wilmington, Delaware. And then we can search either by miles or as the crow flies, which will create a circular buffer around this address. Or we can click on minutes, and that will give you a customized polygon of how far you can get within a 10-minute drive. Now we can increase this. I think it's all the way to 120 minutes, or we can decrease this all the way down to a minute drive time if we wanted to. Let's go ahead and maybe look at about 5 miles, and then we'll see the labor force. So we can see all of the labor force within a 5-minute drive time from this location. Maybe if we were looking to hire everybody that could walk potentially to this location. So now we see that it's created a customized polygon of how far you can get within a 5-minute drive time. And you can see all of the labor force information associated with it. Establishments is employees, establishment by size. So here you can see that the majority of establishments have 1 to 4 employees in this area. Now we see total businesses by establishment type. We see all of the establishment types, and we see where some there are more, or there's more concentration of each one of these. Look at that furniture store example. We've got about 7 or 0.19%. Now, if we click on the heat map here, we can see where that concentration is: 3, 2s, and 1s. All right. And then if we scroll down even further, I think we have more information, employees by occupation. So we're able to see where the distribution of different labors, the skills are as well. And then if you know the major SICs, but you can look at it by there, but it also gives you what they are as well. And then by establishment type, and then that is all for the labor force. So that was the demographics module, being able to slice up your geography in the way that benefits you most, and being able to see your geography desired with the report type that makes most sense for you and your analyses, whether it be demographics, consumer expenditures, or labor force. All right, so that was the final module that was the final analysis of our 4 analyses in the SizeUp tool. The My Business or benchmarking tool, where you're able to compare your business to like industries in your geography, things like average annual revenue, salary of employees, number of employees, so that you can get those stats to better prepare yourself. The competition analyses, where you're able to assess your business's ecosystem, who are your competitors, who are your potential customers, and discover new suppliers. The advertising analysis, being able to target your marketing and advertising dollars to get a better ROI. And then last but not least, the demographics modules. All right. So let me go ahead, and we have about 10 minutes for questions and closing remarks. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the chat and see what the questions are. All right, so I'm looking at the chat. I still see the recording question, but now we have, how do I edit my company's information and add another company? So for the anonymous attendee, I do still see your question. I'm going to go ahead and answer this one first, just because it is much quicker. So if we want to edit a business, if we go to the competition module, which is most likely where you saw your business, you can click on your business either on the map or on the results page, and you can suggest an edit. So what'll happen is it'll ask you to make a quick profile right here. Let's see, I can go ahead and sign in really quick. So what'll happen is I'll go ahead and get signed in, and then I can go ahead and move the business around to its proper location. I can change the street, excuse me, change the address, the state, any of the information that needs to be updated. You can add that, and then you will suggest a change, and then it will come on our back end, and then we'll be able to evaluate and then update that accordingly. Now, if your business is just not popping up, or it's brand new and our system hasn't gotten a chance to update it, you can simply click on this Add a Missing Business and enter all of your information there. Or if you search directly for this, let's see, then you can click on these, or if a business doesn't pop up, then you can simply also add a missing business here. So there are 3 different ways that you can go ahead and edit or add a business if it's not appearing. I hope that was able to answer your question. All right. So, hello. I have attended a SizeUp demo last year. We had an issue because I feel this additive manufacturing, which doesn't come up. We only found plastic molding and plastic product manufacturing and others that don't align with our company functions. Okay. So you might want to, as you already started to do, you might want to look at adjacent type of industry. So additive manufacturing, I'm not sure what the adjacent industries would be, but you can start to type those in with our heuristic search here. So if we start to type in manufacturing, then you could start to kind of scroll down and see all of the other manufacturing companies. And what you type in will be highlighted in red that kind of match up. And you can select those and then get the information that's available on those particular ones. And that's here for the benchmarking here. Now, if you go into the other ones, let's say the competition analyses, then of course you would be able to see which ones are popping up there. And then be able to look at those more specifically. So I hope that was a helpful way to kind of find that. So I know that I think additive manufacturing, I don't know how new that industry is, but if you want to look at adjacent ones, that might help. And of course, as additive manufacturing becomes bigger and becomes its own category, then more information will pop up and you'll be able to do that analysis there. I hope that was helpful.
So Armando, I am doing a side search here
Mhm.
for manufacturing, and I notice if you just start to enter manufacturing,
Mhm.
there are a couple of like really broad categories,
Mhm.
like manufacturing industries or manufacturing industries miscellaneous general. Are those, if you use those as options, which are obviously again very broad, but if she
Mhm.
can't find an adjacent industry or he can't find an adjacent industry to what they're working on, is there value in picking a broad category like that?
I believe so. Yes. Now it is a broad category, so it'll incorporate other manufacturing. I mean, um, it depends how you're doing your analysis and what your competition looks like. So if you are, I mean, competing, if you're not competing for the same type of manufacturing or the same uh, areas of clients and everything, um, maybe not. But if there is a general manufacturing, then absolutely. It might not apply to this particular industry, but things like restaurants, of course, that does apply. You type in restaurants as a broad one, uh, you might potentially be competing against all different types of restaurants, fast food, sit downs, etc. Manufacturing sometimes can be specific. So you might want to play with the numbers and also um, if your goal is, let's say, the city or town you're in is providing incentives or trying to attract manufacturing, then yes, absolutely, because you'll want to see if there's already a cluster of them or what types of manufacturing industries there are. If, let's say, I know a lot of manufacturing industries or manufacturing companies, sometimes they rely on other manufacturing companies to provide things so they can complete their own things, like, for instance, automobiles. If they're making an automobile, sometimes they have to get parts from other manufacturers as well. So it depends on what your analysis is and what kind of questions you're trying to answer. All right. Got a looking at the chat. That okay, thank you. I'm assuming that the same anonymous attendee. So I really hope that was helpful. Another anonymous attendee for grants. They want it more specific. Correct, Armando. Well, I mean, sometimes sometimes the reality is there's not if so the way the analysis work is if there's not enough businesses in, again, this is a very specific industry, if there's not enough data in that particular industry to be statistically significant, then it will show something like no data, which doesn't necessarily mean there's no companies in that particular industry. It just means there's too few of them to do an accurate analysis. And then also sometimes there is only one, let's say. And if we put all the benchmarking info for that one business, let's say we have one dry cleaner in a small town, it will show all the revenue for that particular one, the amount of employees, and then we get into privacy and data concerns that we just, we want to respect everybody's privacy. So that's the reason you might get that as well.
And I'm wondering if, for instance, this was for a grant, maybe it was for the EDGE grant. So, all of your business managers have gone through these webinars and have investigated how to use SizeUp. So I would ask them for more assistance, more details, ask them for something like, would it suffice if I really broaden my search and I found what I do? Maybe the closest example is in another state. Like, that's a competitive analysis. You were able to find it in an adjacent state or one halfway across the country, but there really wasn't anything on the East Coast that comes close to what you were doing. Or can you find a very similar industry or an industry that feeds into what you're doing, as Armando was talking about, like with the automobile example, and use that and say, this is as close as we come. We couldn't find any other examples of things that match our criteria. But if you were talking particularly about the EDGE grant, ask your business manager if those are options, if you could find them, or maybe ask for them to sit with you and work through the SizeUp tool together.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So I do want to respect everybody's time. We are at the top of the hour, so the last thing that I do want to leave you with is going back to the PowerPoint is if you have more specific questions, please visit sizeup.info/open house. And you can go ahead and click on scan that code now. And again, I'll go ahead and provide that recording to Andrea, and then she will post that and provide it through her resources. All right. Well, all of you have a great and wonderful day. I really appreciate it, and I hope this was helpful and insightful to you. All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Andrea.
And thank you again, Armando.